Here is the script. I am currently out of town visiting family for a week. My grandma, who lives with my parents, is very ill, and I wanted to say goodbye. My girlfriend, who I have been with for 7 years, recently had surgery and didn't feel comfortable traveling the 5-hour car ride with me. Very understandable, because she is still in quite a bit of pain. I've been here about 3 days now, and will be spending another 2 here at my parents'. My girlfriend and I have always had a strong relationship. We get along very well. We manage to communicate about almost everything. We rarely fight. In fact, when we do, it's usually about housework, which admittedly is usually my fault, as I leave too much of it on her. This will be relevant in a bit. We had a fight about the housework right before I left to visit my grandmother. Since she had surgery, she hasn't been able to keep up with the cleaning and laundry much, and the house has gotten a bit out of hand. She is kinda a neat freak, where I am okay with clutter, and even by my standards, the house was getting pretty messy. I promised I would clean up, and I did, but she kept insisting more needed to be done. I thought it was clean, but it wasn't up to her standards. Now that I've left, I can see I was a bit in the wrong, and I feel bad, and I've told her so via text. She seems to forgive me. She didn't mean to snap at me over it. She's in pain and is exhausted and just wants more help around the house. I only see clutter when I clean, but I don't think about things like vacuuming and dusting. I thought we had cleared the air and were okay, but she has been very distant over the days I have been here. Very little communication. And now, I got a text from my best friend telling me he saw her walking about a hardware store with some guy. He described him as tall, with dark black, long hair, and a full beard. This does not fit the description of any of her friends. She was leaning against his arm while they walked around the store. He saw them leave together and walk to the chain restaurant across the street. My girlfriend has never given me the impression she would cheat, ever. We've always told each other when we had crushes on people and been open when other people expressed feelings to us. And with her leaning on the guy, I'm worried, but at the same time, my girlfriend tends to lean on all of her friends. She feels comfortable with when there is a lot of walking involved. She had a heart condition, now more exacerbated by her recent surgery, and she does faint on occasion. She always holds my arm when we walk around stores, and I've seen her do the same with her girlfriends. So it may be that she was having a dizzy spell and leaned onto this guy for support, whoever he is. I've expressed that I'm thinking of leaving here today and coming home early, and after all day of not talking to me, she responded, "No, visit with your family. You never see them. Spend all the time with grandma that you can. She doesn't have long left, and I'm sure spending her last days with you will be really comforting for her. It's flattering that you are homesick, though, and you miss me. I miss you too." I didn't want to sound accusatory, so I sent something along the lines of, "Hey, Dave said he saw you at the hardware store today and meant to say hi, but didn't have the time." She responded, "I wasn't at the hardware store today, just the grocery store." Admittedly, I was a bit suspicious. My girlfriend doesn't really do social media. She is a high school teacher, and all she has is a Facebook. She keeps it for professional purposes only and has basically nothing on there, so I decided to check her email. I feel awful, but I'm starting to get worried. She had a few emails from some generic Gmail around that was basically something like, Sugarlaman1234. There was no Google Plus info on the page. I also Googled the Gmail and could find no other accounts associated with it. The back and forth. Sugarland, sorry about the email. Shattered my phone on a job and not going to replace it until my contract expires. That's okay. I totally understand. We still on for Saturday? Yay, I'm free. Is the boyfriend gone already? Yep. He left the other day. Shouldn't be back until like Wednesday. Cool. Sounds good then. Girlfriend, do you want to get dinner or pizza? On me, of course. We will need some fuel, or I imagine we will be exhausted. That's nice of you. Don't know yet. We'll decide that day? I've got my dad's phone now. He doesn't really ever use it, so I'll text you from there. I'll let you know it's me. That was the entirety of it, really. Now I'm even more worried. Should I come home early? Confront her over the phone? Leave it alone until I get home when I was going to anyway? Some info that has come up in comments below. She just had a hysterectomy. She is only recently home from the hospital and doesn't have much energy. We haven't had intimacy since the surgery. She says she can't. I honestly believe her because I've changed the bandaging on her stitches and they look painful. Other than slowly walking around, she can't do too much. My best friend and his girlfriend, now fiancé, have all been mutual friends together for several years and all go out together frequently. He knows for sure what she looks like and that it was her. My birthday is in 10 days. My friend drove by my house. There is a white truck in the driveway, but the plates on it are from a neighboring state. It's getting kinda late there. Friend drove by again. Truck is still there. Truck is from another state, but girlfriend has family in that state. My girlfriend is not really close with her family at all. We really only see them on holidays. However, my girlfriend's family owns a construction company, but their company lays concrete. I don't think they have any carpenters or anything like that. I could be wrong though. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt because she has never done anything to make me mistrust her in the past. A lot of you think there is a surprise for my birthday, and I hope that is it. And many of you think she is cheating, which I hope isn't the case. I don't want to leave early and risk missing out on time with my grandma. Some of you have suggested I have my friend check up on her, but that worries me. Won't I seem paranoid if nothing is going on? On current communication with my girlfriend, I have called her 3 times and texted her a ton. I haven't been accusatory, just asked what she was doing and if she had any friends over. Basically, we live in a dead zone, cell phone coverage-wise. We live in a town surrounded by cornfields for miles and miles. We get spotty reception at best. When I last spoke to her, she said she was doing laundry and working on a quilt she is making for my mom. Both the laundry and her sewing room are in the basement. We get no service in the basement. A little while ago, I got a picture message of our cat laying all over her quilting supplies and one saying she missed me. It's possible she hasn't gotten my texts because she has very possibly been in her sewing room all day. She can spend hours there working on projects and watching Netflix. She always calls me right before she falls asleep when we are apart though, so I'm waiting for her to call me before bed now. Still no call from her, but if she is in the basement quilting and watching Netflix, that is no surprise. She can go for hours. No idea if the truck is still there or not. My friend drove by again around 9 p.m. and it was still there. I'm not going to make him go out again. I'm thinking I will just come home when I was supposed to. If anything is going on, I have proof. I'll update as soon as I am able or when I am actually allowed to post again. Waiting sucks. Now for a few comments. This may sound stupid, but am I the only one who thinks she might be planning some sort of surprise and this guy is helping? Who meanders around a hardware store with their lover? If it was a birthday surprise, why wouldn't your friends be in on it? I would focus on your family for now. There is nothing to gain from confronting her right now. I advise you against pursuing this right now. It won't help, but it will hurt your sanity. After this, you can brace yourself and ask her for the truth. What the hell haven't you dumped her yet? Why are you rationalizing all of this away? Unless he's a prostitute, the email from her indicating that all food and drink would be on her lead me to believe that she's paying him for a service that requires items from a hardware store. Commenters also advise OP to send his friend over to spy. Now for the update. 3 days later. Sorry for the formatting. I'm on mobile. Well, here goes. I'm going to pick up where I left off with the last post and detail what happened from there. My girlfriend called me at 1 a.m. and apologized profusely, saying she didn't realize what time it had gotten to because she was busy. She normally calls me around 11:30 or so. I decided then and there that I was going to save the text from Dave, a screenshot of the email, and confront her when I got home. I weighed my options and decided it was better to be cheated on and let it go on a few extra days and spend time with my family, then to rush home or accuse her over the phone and find out she was planning something for my birthday. I think that would ruin her trust in me forever. Nothing seemed odd when she called, She asked after my family, sent me a few progress pictures of the quilt she was making for my mom, told me she loved me and that she would call me in the morning. Monday morning, my grandma took a turn for the worse, and my brother, mother, and father all gathered at the hospice to spend the final hours with her. Somewhere in the very wee hours of Tuesday morning, she passed away from lung cancer. Seriously, people, put down your cigarettes. We were really her only remaining family. My father was an only child, and she had no living siblings, and she had moved in with my parents a while ago and hasn't kept in touch with anyone. In lieu of planning a traditional funeral, we just decided to proceed with having her buried next to her husband's plot, something she had already pre-planned, paid for, and requested in her will, and spent Tuesday gathered around in the living room, telling stories about her and looking through her shoeboxes full of photographs to create an updated photo album. It was nice, actually. My girlfriend kept in constant contact with me through this whole thing and talked to my parents as well. They love her. During that time, I decided to let everything fall out of my mind other than my family. It was pretty evenly split on what people believed about my girlfriend, but what felt right in my gut was that she was planning something for me. Many of you said I was denying any possibility she was cheating and had my head in the sand, that she was blowing this guy, freaking him in my bed, and that she was on some sort of penis-related carnival ride. Some said I trusted her too much and that it would come back to bite me. And many of you said I didn't trust her enough, that I was letting what my friends saw cloud my judgment. There is some truth in that. Many of you wondered if Dave hated my girlfriend or wanted to get with her. I promise you that is not the case at all. Dave has been cheated on before and just wanted to look out for me. If I had asked him to confront her, he would have done it in a heartbeat. But even he thought something was up, knowing us for as long as he has. I asked him to leave it, and that I would deal with everything when I got home. If there really was nothing going on, I didn't want to risk crushing her spirit when she was just trying to do something nice for me. I let my girlfriend know I would be home sometime Wednesday, but I was going to have breakfast with my family first. She requested I call her when I get in the state. This was my intention, but I was getting so homesick, and I just really needed to see my girlfriend, so I hit the road sometime around 5 a.m. With no rest stops and minimal traffic, I made pretty great time and got home at 10:30 or so. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw the white truck parked there already. I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked up to the front door. I kept repeating in my head that I trusted her and that there was nothing going on. As I walked in the front door, which enters into the living room, I locked eyes with the guy. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor in sweatpants and a tank top eating cereal off my coffee table. He looked younger than I thought he would be from Dave's description, but he had a full beard and long black hair in a ponytail. He nodded and said, "Hey dude, welcome back," which felt odd. I just stood there, staring at him, wading through the surrealness of the situation, looking for the right words. My girlfriend then came down the hallway, smiled, and hugged me. "Hey, I'm so sorry about Grandma. Any chance you remember my cousin Max? I know it's been a while." I stared at him, and I swear I had never seen this person in my life. I just had this sinking feeling and only replied, "I don't think we have met. Aunt Ellen's son, the one that lives in other state." And suddenly it dawned on me. Her Aunt Ellen's husband, Uncle Joe, was her second husband. She married young but split up with this kid's father pretty early. Max lives with his dad in other state, and Max's dad is 100% Italian, which explains the hair. All I could say was, "Whoa, man, you've grown up." He just laughed and said, "Yeah, I've changed a bit." The last time I saw this kid, he was a chubby, neon green-haired, acne-covered teenager in a tap-out t-shirt. He really came out of puberty well. I think I last saw him 4 or 5 years ago on Christmas. She asked me if we could talk, so I followed her into our bedroom. She basically said he was moving back in with Aunt Ellen and getting a job as a grunt with her family construction company part-time. He wants to go to a local college around us, and my girlfriend promised to help him fill out his FAFSA, polish his entrance letter, and study for his placement tests in exchange for some work. He went to an alternative trade school for carpentry his last 2 years of high school, and my girlfriend's dad says he did pretty well. She said she had something planned for my man cave, but they hit a few hang-ups, and it's taking longer than expected. She brought our Xbox upstairs into the living room and has made me swear I will not enter the basement for any reason until my birthday. I debated pretending I wasn't worried at all, but I like that we are always honest with each other. I told her Dave saw her out with her cousin and had me a bit worried about him. She just laughed and said, "I didn't realize he saw us together. I thought you meant he just saw me." She said they had walked basically around opposite ends of the store shopping separately. They only met up to check out. She asked why I didn't just ask her who it was. She said she could have told me it was Max and still been able to keep the exchange of work under wraps and just told me about the college thing. I basically told her I didn't want to make her feel like I was accusing her of anything, which I think she appreciated. Max is going to be staying here a few more days longer than she planned, which I wish she would have told me about. But after this, that seems like nothing at all. I think she is a bit upset that I could even think for a moment she would cheat on me. But she said she was glad I didn't come flying home early, kicking doors in or anything. So I think we are good. Just in case, I'm going to kiss her butt for a while. Now for some clarifications. Max is not moving in with us. He is moving back in with his mom. He was already supposed to be home with her by the time I came home, but they hit some snags with whatever he is working on. He is staying a few more days to finish up, then going home to his mother's spore. For those asking why my girlfriend would not tell me why Max was over, she didn't know. Dave saw her with him. She just thought he saw her in the paint department by herself. I think she wanted to not arouse any suspicion at all in me. He was supposed to be done before I even got home. I remember her mentioning that he was in carpentry school. I didn't know it was part of a 2-year high school thing, and for some reason, I was picturing him as a lot older than he was. I think I had him confused with his older stepbrother. I've had my brother over when she was visiting her best friend out of state before, and it was a non-issue. We have a pretty open-door policy when it comes to close friends and family, so having him over is a total non-issue for me. I see how it would be an issue for some people, but it's not in our relationship. I think she just wanted me to spend time with my family and not focus on what was going on at home in the slightest. She was going to tell me about the FAFSA/college thing if I asked, but since I didn't, she just decided to keep it under wraps. Am I the idiot for cutting off my mother after she accused me of becoming an addict like my father? So, a little background. I'm male 35, and my parents divorced when I was 17. My dad struggled with alcohol and drug addiction, and my mom eventually left him, which I totally understood and supported. Living with him was impossible. He wasn't violent, but verbally hurtful, and he spent all our money on his habits. That was the last straw for my mom. After the divorce, my dad spiraled. He nearly overdosed and ended up in the ICU. I was living with my mom at the time, but I was scared that my dad would die, so I moved back with him and my uncle's family. My mom was disappointed, but let me make my choice. Losing my mom, most of his friends, going broke, nearly dying, finally got through to my dad, and he promised he would get better for me. It was hard to watch, but he actually turned things around. My uncle paid for everything: rehab, therapy, medical bills, and after about 5 years, my dad was clean and somewhat healthy again. He even apologized to my mom, and she forgave him, though she told me later it was only for my sake, so that they could be civil at future events like my graduation or wedding. Over those years, I kept in contact with my mom, regularly met with her. She had moved on and met a great guy, who she eventually married. She was much happier, and I was happy for her. I thought we had a pretty good relationship. That changed when I was 23. My mom asked me to come over, and she told me she was still angry and disappointed that I chose my dad over her after the divorce. She said I was ungrateful for everything she went through, putting up with my dad's shoot, and then she hit me with something that still pisses me off today. She told me she could see me becoming a drunk and drug addict like my dad because I stayed close to him. I don't drink, I don't do drugs to this day, and I had no idea where that even came from. I was floored. I thought we had moved past all that, but apparently she'd been harboring resentment for years. Then, she said that she wanted to go no contact with me because being around me brought back too many bad memories of my dad. She said she had found peace and happiness, and I was a reminder of all the pain she'd been through. I didn't know what to say except, okay. I later found out from a cousin on her side that her whole family was pissed at me for staying with my dad back then, and they all went no contact with me for her sake, saying that I betrayed her. I haven't seen or heard from my mom since that day. Fast forward to now, my dad passed away 2 years ago from a heart attack, a result of his years of addiction. Despite being clean for over a decade, he had lingering medical issues. I recently got married, and my wife posted some pictures from the wedding on Facebook. My wife said a woman claiming to be a cousin contacted her. I looked at the message, and it was cousin from my mom's side, asking if it was really me in the pictures with my full name. I told my wife to ignore it, but then I got a call from my uncle later that same day, saying that my mom showed up at his house. For context, the house where my uncle lives currently used to be the home where I grew up with my parents. My uncle said she asked him to arrange a meeting between us, saying she wants to apologize to me face to face. He told me he can set it up if I want. Honestly, after all these years, I feel nothing for her except maybe slight resentment for thinking that I would turn out as an addict. I was going to say no right away, but my wife thinks that's a shitty thing to do, and I should at least hear her out, let her apologize, and then go back to never seeing her again if I want. She says, despite what she did shield me from most of Dad's addictions growing up. Now, I'm having second thoughts. Am I the idiot if I refuse to meet her? Now, for a few important comments. A commenter said, NTA, you have to go with your gut. It has been 10 years, and she has discovered that you didn't become an addict and instead have created a happy life. You're married, which means there could be grandkids in the future. Are you happy without her? If you've moved on without that side of the family, if you've created your own happy family, then why rock that boat? Your wife may not be able to let it go, though, and if you turn your mother down, you're going to have a lot of flying monkeys contacting you and your wife to tell you how cruel you're being. I couldn't deal with that personally. I don't do drama. She made a choice and you've respected it. I'd say no and be ready with the block feature. Another commenter said, NTA, but I am wondering if you are an only child. Her reasoning might be that since you got married, you might also be having kids and she wants to be a grandmother. You have to think about what her ulterior motive might be, and this is what I come up with. OP responded, one of my reasonings is also this. She never cared before that cousin probably told her about the wedding pictures. Another commenter added, I agree with everything except your take on the wife's attitude. I think she's pushing her own feelings, not supporting OP with his. He doesn't owe his mother hearing her out just so she feels less guilty. OP replied, my wife is just looking out for me so that I don't have any regrets. I know she will fully support me if I say I do not want to meet her. Now for the 1 week update. I didn't expect the amount of comments I got on the first post. Thank you to everyone who weighed in, whether you agreed with me or not. There were so many different perspectives, and I've taken time to think about everything. First, I want to talk about this. A few of you said I abandoned my mom when I went to live with Dad. It looks that way. When I think about it now, however, I feel I never abandoned her in any way. I loved my mom dearly, and I loved my dad too. When she told me she was divorcing Dad, I helped her pack. I left with her, as I thought at the time Dad was a lost cause. I went back about 7 months after the divorce when my dad was fighting for his life. That was when he promised me he would change and get help. I chose to stay with Dad after getting permission from Mom. As I said in my first post, she was disappointed but agreed Dad needed me. Even after I chose to stay with my dad and uncle, I always stayed in contact with her. My mom and dad lived about 20 minutes apart, and I made sure to see my mom regularly, 4 to 5 times a week at least. I would talk to her every day too. We went on trips together, ate meals together, and hung out as much as we could, When she moved in with her new husband, who I will call John, she always included me in her new family's life. John was good to me too. For all that time, there was not even one inclination of the resentment Mom had for me when she blindsided me with the decision to go no contact. I was completely shocked. She never expressed any anger or frustrations toward me. We never argued, and she never showed she was upset about my relationship with my dad until that day. After she blocked me from everyone, I tried for a couple of years to reconnect, but eventually gave up when I moved out of the city. I decided to meet her for closure after thinking about it for a while. I was going to tell my uncle to set up a meeting, but before I could, my uncle called me again, 3 days after my mom showed up at his house. He told me she came by again and gave him a letter for me. She apologized for bothering him and said she wouldn't be coming by again. She didn't want to raise my hopes unnecessarily and hoped I would understand after I read the letter. My uncle said she sounded very sincere. I asked my uncle to send me pictures of the letter. It's not that long, so I'll summarize the important bits. The letter was a mix of apologies and well wishes. She wrote she was sorry for how she treated me back then, especially for saying I'd turn out like my dad. She said she was going through some relationship issues with John, and then seeing Dad getting better made her feel bitter because Dad never tried for her. She thought her second marriage was failing, and everyone around her was happy while she was miserable. She said she listened to some bad advice, and she regrets it. She said she regrets taking her anger out on me when she should have gotten help. She said she made up lies to her side of the family so that they side with her. She said she got help a couple of years after she went no contact, but was too ashamed to reach out to me. She saw the wedding pictures and is happy for me, wishing me the best in my life. She wrote that while she initially wanted to meet me, after some reflection and with her family's advice, she realized it was for selfish reasons and for her own sake only. She apologized again and said it's better if we keep things the way they are. She ended the letter by saying she's happy and she doesn't want to drag up the past. She apologized once more and wrote she won't contact me again for both our sakes and asked me not to contact her as well. She wished me and my wife well. So there's that. Honestly, it's probably the best outcome, and I'm at peace with it. I am happy with my life, and I am glad Mom is happy with her life. Like she asked, I am not going to contact her, but I will keep my door open if she wants to meet in the future. I also realized how stupid I was to hold on to my resentment of her comment about me becoming an addict. I also want to address the comments that said my wife was overstepping. My wife knows all about my past and about my mom. She is a kind soul who sees the best in people. Like I said in a comment in my first post, she was just looking out for me. She wanted me to have no regrets. She did apologize for saying it would be shitty not to meet Mom, but it's all good. We both know each other's boundaries. We communicate well. Right now, we're planning our honeymoon, and life is good. Thanks for all the supportive messages and comments. Truly appreciate it. Bye. Am I the idiot for letting my son cut off his uncle after he was banned from the wedding? Original post. 6 months ago, my son Leo, male 14, decided to cut off my brother Jack, 46 meter. Now my mom, brother, sister-in-law, and other family members want me to make my son forgive him to keep the peace. For a little bit of context, I'm a single dad. My family has always helped me in many ways, mostly babysitting when Leo was younger, and even before my son was born, we were all very close. We all live relatively close to each other, so we've been able to keep in touch with weekly gatherings, spending the holidays together, etc. Everyone loves my son, and my son loved them back. However, my brother Jack was always my son's favorite person. Back when my son was 3 to 4 years old, Jack and his wife had more flexible jobs than me, think freelancing versus a 9 to 5, so they always volunteered to look after Leo, something he loved. Almost every month, they would take him to the zoo or the aquarium, or they'd even go camping with him. As my son grew older, he started to develop the same interests as my brother, like video games, photography, and music. When Leo was 9, he told me he wanted to have the same career as his uncle. This is all to say, they were extremely close. Last year, my brother informed me that he and his girlfriend Mary were getting married. I knew that neither Jack nor his girlfriend believed in marriage, so when I asked them about it, they told me it was all Karen's idea, my sister-in-law's mom. Because Jack and Mary didn't care much about the wedding, and since Karen was paying for it, they let her plan everything, from the venue to the food, music, etc. Karen decided to plan a destination wedding at a fancy resort. In July of last year, we received the invitation, and it was addressed to both me and my son. I even had a +1 if I wanted, and as soon as the website went up, I tried to make a reservation for our hotel room. I should clarify that I had to call the hotel to make my reservation because the link wasn't working, and I really couldn't risk not getting a room. When I received the email confirmation, it said room for 2 adults, but I didn't think much of it and just assumed it was an error due to the language barrier with the hotel guy. I also bought the plane tickets for us around the same time. Fast forward to January, less than a month before the wedding, when my sister-in-law called me crying, saying that Karen had made a mistake with the venue. Apparently, the resort was for adults only, so they didn't allow anyone younger than 16. My son was 13 at the time. I asked her if it would be possible for Leo and me to stay in another hotel, but they told me the whole resort was child-free, so my son wouldn't even be allowed to attend the ceremony or the reception. I was disappointed, and I told my sister-in-law I'd talk to my son about it. I knew how excited he was about his uncle's wedding, but she insisted both her and Jack wanted to tell him in person. Honestly, my son was devastated. He started crying as soon as he was told he wouldn't be able to go. He pleaded with them and even offered to give them all of his savings so they could move the wedding. After 30 minutes of this, my sister-in-law got frustrated and just told him that he was being selfish and that this day wasn't about him. Leo eventually apologized and went to his room. After the wedding, my son just stopped talking to my brother. If Jack sent him a message, Leo would just ignore it unless it had something to do with me. For example, he would only reply if Jack asked him to tell me something because he couldn't reach me, etc. At our family gatherings, Leo would only respond to small questions like, "Can you pass the salt?" or "Help Grandma with the plates." But he would ignore my brother if Jack or Mary tried to start a conversation or ask him about school, etc. A month after the wedding, Jack and Mary offered to take him for a special vacation during spring break to make up for the wedding. But my son just ignored them, and he later told me he didn't want to go with them. It was heartbreaking because I knew how much he wanted to go to that place, and I wasn't able to afford it yet, but he stuck to his guns. Something similar happened on Leo's birthday. He asked me if I was planning to throw him a party. I do it every year, and when I said yes, he asked me not to invite his aunt and uncle. I tried to convince him to invite them because they're family and they were really sorry, but he just said that if they didn't want him on their special day, he didn't want them on his. My brother was crying when I told him he wasn't invited. However, things came to a head this past weekend. We were at my mom's house, and the conversation of Leo's university came up. My mom asked Leo if he was still planning on going to the same university as Jack, and that he should start planning for that. But my son replied that he wasn't interested anymore, and he had chosen to study something else. Then my mom said, "I thought you wanted to be like your uncle." And my son just said, "Why would I want to be like him?" At this point, I intervened and told Leo he didn't have to be so rude, but the damage was already done. Both my brother and sister-in-law heard what he said, and they left shortly after. Last night, my brother texted me saying I was a jerk for letting my son continue with this grudge, and he even accused me of being jealous of their relationship, and that's why I wasn't doing anything to fix it. I just told him these were the consequences of his actions, and that this was 100% his fault by allowing his POS mother-in-law to plan the wedding when she obviously hated my child. He hung up on me. My mom and some other family members think I should force my son to forgive my brother so we can all move on, claiming there was no ill intent and it was just a small mistake. But I don't think I should. My son was clearly hurt, and he should be allowed to heal and forgive them only when he's ready. So, am I the jerk? Now for the update. So, I've received some messages asking for an update. I appreciate everyone who took the time to comment and send me messages. Some may have been a bit harsh, but I deserved it. Thanks for slapping some sense into me. The short version is that we'll stop going to the family events for a while. I talked to my brother, and he will respect my son's boundaries. And he also explained what really happened. And above all, Leo is doing much better now. Here's the longer update in case anyone's interested in the details. Mom and sister. The short of it is that I informed my mom that both Leo and I would stop going to the family gatherings until things calmed down, and more importantly, until he felt comfortable again. She was understandably upset, but I think she finally understood how much she had been hurting Leo. What surprised me is that my mom told me that Jack had become depressed, so she was worried about him, and that's why she was so insistent that Leo should forgive him. I basically told her that if we forced Leo to forgive my brother, we risked pushing him away from us. As for my sister, she was also sad when I told her we'd stop going to the family gatherings, but she said she understood. However, she suggested we make our own weekly tradition so the children can still hang out, and that's what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks. We decided my nibblings would come to my house one week, and then Leo would hang out at hers the next. So far, it seems to be working, and Leo is happy with this arrangement. I think it helps that he isn't being pressured by the adults expecting him to talk to his uncle. Jack and Mary. I talked to my brother, and he apologized for what happened. He explained that he didn't know about the resort's age restriction until my sister-in-law called him crying. He said he felt terrible about it, but didn't want to ruin the wedding by changing the venue at the last minute. He also said he didn't realize how much it had hurt Leo until it was too late. Mary also apologized and said she should have done more to include Leo in the wedding. They both promised to respect Leo's boundaries and give him space. Leo is doing much better now. He's still hurt, but I think he's starting to heal. We've been spending more time together. And he's been talking to me about how he feels. He said he still loves his uncle, but he needs more time before he's ready to forgive him. I told him that's okay, and that he can take all the time he needs. The weekend after I posted here, I texted my brother asking him to meet me so we could talk. I had told him that I wanted to speak with him alone, so Mary wasn't present. Jack immediately apologized and said how much he regretted what he had done and the things he had told me. He confirmed what I already suspected and said he was stressed because of the constant fights with Mary. He mentioned that he had considered divorce because of how bad the fights got. I may seem cruel here, but I basically told him that I didn't care about that. What I wanted was for him to tell me the truth about what the hell had happened. Jack maintains that he didn't know about the venue being child-free until last November. However, like many of you suspected, Mary had known for quite a while, maybe even the whole time. Apparently, this all started a few years back when Jack and Mary took Leo to the beach. While they were playing, my son had accidentally called Jack Dad before quickly correcting himself. From what Jack told me, it was a small mistake, like when you call a teacher Mum. Leo was embarrassed, but Jack just laughed it off. The catch? Jack's mother-in-law, Karen, and father-in-law had joined them for that vacation, and they overheard Leo when that happened. When they came back from their vacation, Karen had gone ballistic, claiming she was triggered by some random kid calling Jack Dad, knowing that Mary can't have children. Mary had tried to explain it was just a misunderstanding, but Karen became extremely toxic and hurtful towards Mary, and she started making demands like not inviting Leo over when Karen visited, etc. So when Jack and Mary decided to get married, and since they initially just wanted to elope and not have a party at all, Karen manipulated Mary and convinced her to let her plan the perfect wedding for her only daughter. Mary gave in because she was sick of several years of emotional manipulation, and she just wanted to keep the peace. So Karen hijacked the wedding, and she chose the child-free venue on purpose. Mary discovered this when the venue was booked, or shortly after, but she didn't say anything because every time she tried to argue, Karen would play the victim and stuff. Mary claimed that she had tried to negotiate with the resort, that an exception be made so the children could attend the ceremony reception even if they stayed in a different hotel, but the manager stood firm on the policy. But the closer they got to the date, the more anxious she got until she finally admitted the truth to Jack in November. According to my brother, Mary exploded to Leo because of all the constant bullying and manipulation from her own mother, and she also felt extremely guilty by letting things get that far. For his part, Jack said that if he had found out before, he would have stepped in and canceled the wedding rather than exclude Leo and my sister's children. But by that point, a lot of people had already booked their flights and hotel rooms, so canceling wasn't an option. In the end, I told my brother that none of that excused the way they had behaved, especially his wife. She was a 40-plus-year-old woman picking a fight with a kid. She had yelled and called him selfish when all Leo wanted was to offer the 2,000 pounds he had saved so he could be part of Jack's special day. I reminded him that Leo looked up to him and considered him his hero, and he had let him down. He had shown Leo that he wasn't important to him the way Jack was important to Leo. I also told him that I would keep supporting Leo on going no contact, and I'd be going low contact with him myself. He asked me for a chance to apologize to Leo, but I told him he had already apologized. All he could do now was wait to see if one day my son would accept his apology. Jack seemed hurt, but he told me he would respect our wishes and give us time and space. As for my son, I apologized for not standing up to him and forcing him to meet with the family every week. I told him that he could decide what he wanted to do with that part of the family going forward. He seemed reluctant to stop going, but I let him know that I would support him no matter what, and that I wouldn't be upset. What made me happy was that Leo suggested we could stop going to the family every week, and instead we could spend more time together. He and I, Carl, doing some of the things he used to do with my brother. Last week, we went to a vintage car show, and next week, we're going to watch Wicked. I'm not a theater guy, but it sounds fun. I also told him I was worried he had stopped doing things he liked, and that he shouldn't stop just because he had a falling out with someone he cared about. Basically told him it was okay to still enjoy things by himself or with someone else. He admitted he actually wanted to do those things, but stopped just to spite Jack. I decided to give him an early Christmas gift and bought him some games he had been excited about, but that he had refunded after the fight with my brother. He even convinced me to play with him some Final Fantasy Online game on his PS5 while he plays on PC. I admit, I have no idea what I'm doing on that game since the last Final Fantasy game I played was still in 2D, but he seems to enjoy watching me fail. Any advice here is welcome. Finally, we decided to take a trip to his dream destination for my birthday. I was a little bit sad because it's going to be the first time in almost 50 years that I don't celebrate a birthday with my brother. But I've got my son, and that's all that matters. So yeah, Leo is happier and less stressed about the family. Speaking of which, I think the family is finally respecting our boundaries, so that's good too. I just hope my brother can work on his marriage. I may hate what they did, but I do want him to be happy.